So let me start by saying good morning, MTA family, and I'm grateful that you joined us today. I'm always wishing you both safety and health. My name is Yvelle Stanford. I'm AVP in the People Group, and I lead HR training, development, and educational resources. So as many of us are getting back to work, 50% or more, we've been grappling with our work getting done, both at home and at work and going back and forth. So we, like many, are realizing that our digital learning demands have really increased. So we've been asked to assist with increasing the capability for many in working with the digital resources that we just have to use and list every day. So many teams have asked us about Excel in the past, but even more so today because we have, can you believe it, even less time than before. So what we're hoping today in functions in Excel, and I'm hoping I'm saying it right, Rafa, because I was like formulas, functions, I'm listening and learning along with you. In functions in Excel, we're hoping to save you some time as well as just give you some new tools to keep you productive and keep the stress down. So our tech lead is waiting. Rafa, we're ready.
All right, thank you, Ivel. And good morning. Good morning, everyone. Let me put my camera over here so you can see how excited I am to bring this new webinar in Excel. So today with me is also Marites Macapagal. You want to say hi, Marites?
Thank you for joining us this morning. So this morning I will be taking care of the Q&A section. So feel free to send me any question to assist you. Thank you. Thanks, Rafa.
Thank you, Marites. So I checked the registration. I noticed some of you were here last week. All right, doing the class with Marites. I do hope to see you again in our upcoming sessions. All right, so today we're going to talk about functions in Excel. So let me start by putting my PowerPoint presentation and share with you the objective of today. Okay, so our learning objectives for today. Participants will be able to understand the concept of a function in Excel. Also, you're going to learn how to use the V lookup, the vertical lookup. You're also going to learn how to use the if function. And finally, I'm going to show you how to use the count if function. All right, so let's get started with the concept of a function. What is a function? I want you to take I want you to take 5 seconds and think about when I use the word function in Excel. What comes to your mind? What is a function in Excel? So what do you think a function is? Oh, well, I hope you were not reading from my PowerPoint presentation because I kind of like gave you the answer right there. So this is how I see a function in Excel. A function in Excel is a built-in formula that performs quick calculations. Now, when I say built-in, what it means is that the function it's already in Excel. And all you have to do is know the name of the function and what it does. And then you go and use it, and that will let you save some time. Okay, so right here, you have on the screen an illustration of a function. And what you're saying over here is, you remember we have a mask distribution the other day, okay? So we were giving out masks at different stations, okay? You can see over here some of these results. Let's pretend that this is some of the data that was collected. So let's say at Grand Central, 921 masks were gave out, 42nd, 57, and so on. Now, an analyst have to run some data analysis on this data. Okay, so he needs to find out how many masks were already distributed. So what he'll need to do is he need to count these entries over here. Okay, two ways to do this. He could just go manually and do this. It said, well, I want to add the numbers on B4, B5, B6, B7, B8. And yes, even though that's a manual process, that's a calculation, he can do it that way and get the results. But there is a better way to do it. He could use a function. So remember, functions is about doing a calculation for you, but also saving times on your daily activities. So instead of adding all these cells over here, he could use the function and say, well, I want to add the cells from here all the way to the last one. Okay, and that will be a much quicker calculation. That's what you do with a function. So there are different functions of different types for different necessities. I want you to take a look at the other function that I have over here on the illustration. So let's say you need to enter today's date on an Excel spreadsheet. You can go there and type A6-2020. You can also use the today function as you see it over here. Okay, so what does the today function do for you? If you didn't know about this function, now I guess just by looking at the name of the function, you can tell that what the function does is it just retrieve today's date or whichever day you run the function at. So, but the difference or the good thing about this today function is that the function will update this date every day. So if you open your spreadsheet tomorrow, instead of 8/6/2020, you're going to see August 7, 2020. Okay, so that's a real functionality of the today function. So if you need your day to stay the same, don't change, then don't use the today function. But if you want a day that keeps updating as you open your spreadsheet, now you have the today function. You have another similar function down here, which is the now function. Okay, and what the now function does, it brings the date together with the time at which you run this function. Okay, now when you're using a function, let me go to the next slide. I want to talk now about the structure of a function. Every time you're going to use a function on Excel, this is how you use the function. First thing you have to do is you start with the equal sign. You see the equal sign over here. That's the first step you always need to do every time you're going to use a function on Excel. The next step, you type in the function name. Okay, so whatever the name of the function, you type it, and then you have to provide the function with what we call the arguments of the function. So what are the arguments? So the arguments are simply the values that the function needs to do that calculation. Okay, every function will do a different calculation, so that's why different functions will need different arguments and even different type of arguments. Okay, so after you type the function name, you open the parentheses and then you start providing the argument. So argument number 1, and then number 2, and then number 3, and so on. How many arguments? It all depends on the function. There are some functions that requires only 1 argument. Some of them require 2. Some of the arguments also are optional. Okay, there are some functions that don't even require an argument. So let me go back here for 1 second. On the previous slide, you notice that the today function, all I needed to do over here was just put the equal sign, type the name of the function, and then just open and close parentheses. There was no need to provide an argument on this function. While with the sum function that you see over here, after I type in the function name and I open the parentheses, I have to tell the function this argument. So the argument over here is just the range of cells that I wanted the function to add. Okay, so going back here, let's take a look at this function, the so-called network days. All right, let's say I was working in a project. Okay, there were different phases to that project, but phase number 1 started on May 8th, 2020, and it ended on the 11th. And now my manager wants to know how many days it took me to complete phase number 1 of my training project. So you may be saying, well, if he started on the 8th and he finished on the 11th, so what is that? The 8, the 10, the 9, and the 11. That should be 4 days, okay? But if you go and look at a calendar, you're going to notice that May 8th right here happens to be a Friday. And the 11th, it's a Monday. So I really work only 2 days on that project because, well, technically I don't work on Saturdays and Sundays, although most of us ended up doing it all the time. But if I really want to work, if I really wanted to count the working days on this project, it should be only 2, the Friday and the Monday, right? Now, if you don't know about the network days, how do you do this calculation over here? Well, you have to go back to the calendar and look at the days and do your manual count. But now you know that using the network days, it's another way that you have to count those working days between two given dates. Okay. Now I want you to notice something over here on this function. Okay. Argument number 1 is the start date. Okay. So once again, argument number 1 is the start date. You have to provide the starting date, the ending date. But you notice that there is another argument over here called holidays. Okay, so what does the holidays argument refers to over here? Well, the holidays is there because you could, let's say that there were some holidays in between those dates. So yeah, you want to let Excel know about those holidays, so Excel doesn't count those holidays. So if that is the case, you have to provide Excel with a list of those holidays. And what you do is you put those holidays on a range on Excel, and then you go and select it. But what I want you to notice over here is that the holidays argument is surrounded by square brackets. So every time you're using a function and you see an argument that goes inside square brackets, that's the indication that this particular argument is optional, meaning you may provide data, you may not. So you use it or you don't use it, it's optional. Okay. Now, let me show you how these network days work now using an Excel file. So let me take you over to Excel now. Okay. And I have this file over here that if you look at the chat, I made the file available to you so you can download it. I want you to do that, of course, right now. I just want you to pay attention to me, but later you can download it and just keep it for your records. Okay. So now, in this Excel file, I'm going to show you how to use the network days. And look what I put over here, because I want you to always remember every time you're using a function on Excel, first thing you need to do is begin with the equal sign. Okay. After the equal sign, follow with the name of the function. And right after that, you open parentheses and then you start providing the arguments that the function requires. All right. So let me use it over here. Let me go to cell D11 and let me do the first calculation for phase number 1 of this training project that I was working on. All right. So in order for me to count those days, I'm going to use the function. Again, step number 1, equal sign. Step number 2, start typing the name of the function, network days. So you notice that as you start typing, Excel will give you a list of those functions that begin with the letters that you just typed. So I could stop right here, grab my mouse, and then go over the function that I want to use. What you need to do over here, if you want to use my technique, you have to do a double click. Not just a single click, but a double click, so the name of the function gets entered for you, saving you even more time, right? Now you don't have to type, Excel will do it for you. Not only will Excel put the function there for you, it will also open the first parenthesis. So you see right here, okay, you got the first parenthesis open, And now the function always will tell you which arguments are required. Okay, so I was saying this before. You start with the start date. Now look at the start date. Okay, you notice that it is bolded. So that is the function saying, well, this is the first argument you have to give me, you have to provide. So now, how do I tell the function the start date? I just simply go over to the start date location and I just click. Okay, and you see how clicking on cell B11 will just put the cell reference right there. Now, could I type B11 myself without clicking with the mouse? Yes, I could, but I feel like I go a little bit faster when I do the clicking with the mouse. Okay, now, how do I jump over to the next argument? So you notice that there is a comma separating the arguments right there. So that's what I need to do in order to activate the next argument. So I'm going to do that now on my keyboard. I press the comma. And you notice also that now the start date is no longer bolded. Now what's bolded is the next argument, meaning the end date. Okay, so what I need to do now is I need to select the end date, which is right here on cell C11. So I'm going to click there, and I gave the function what the function needs to do its job. Okay, also notice the next argument, the holidays, I described that before, and I said, well, if there were some holidays in between, right, I could have just put them on different cells on Excel, and now I could go and select them. But I know there were no holidays there, so I'm not going to use the last argument, the optional one. So what I do over here is I just simply close my parentheses right there, and that's it. Now, hit the enter key, and voila, you have 2 as the number of days that elapsed from May 8th to 11. Once again, I should say the number of working days. So that's from Monday through Friday. Saturday and Sunday were not counting. So once again, this is a function that now you can start using if you didn't know about this function before. So once again, I'm still with objective number 1. I just want you, for those of you who are new to the concept of functions, I just want you to know what a function is, what it does for you, how you use it, and how you can use it to, do your work a little bit faster. So now that I have the number for the first phase of my training project, all I need to do now is just come over here to the lower hand right corner of the cell, and then I just drag down like this, and I got the numbers for the other phases of the training project. Okay, what I need to do next is I need to add these numbers. Okay, so it's now time for the for another function. Most of you are probably familiar with that. Okay, but now what are you going to do if you don't know so much about functions? You just knew a handful number of functions. So here is what I can recommend you do. So I'm going to take you up here to the what's called the formula bar. Okay, that's where you usually put your formulas, but you notice that right next to it there is an icon. Okay, and this icon, once you click on the icon, it brings all the functions that you have in Excel. So if I click on that icon, I get the window called the insert function. And look at this. Initially, I'm going to see the most recently used functions. So some, because I use it all the time, is going to be there. But there are many more. So you can explore different categories. Okay, so you have some homework to do now after we're finished here. And when you get some time, you may want to go back here and start looking at the different categories and looking at the different functions available to you. Notice that the once you pick a function, let me go with the financial over here. Look at all the options you have there. Now, let's say I pick this function, okay? And what happens once you select the function is you're going to have a description of what the function does, and you're also going to see what the arguments are for that function, okay? So once again, that's your homework for later. All right, different categories over here. I want you to look at a category that you may not have on your computer. Okay, this one over here is called user defined. What do they mean by user defined? That means that the user on this computer took the time to create his own functions. Okay, who is that user? Well, that will be me, of course. Okay, I like to play with Excel so much. I got these two functions over here that I need for a specific purpose. Okay, maybe if I have the time, I will share what those functions do to me. But yes, user defined, that means you can create your own functions in Excel. All right, I'm going to go back to the most recently used function because I need to select the sum function from here. So I'm going to pick the function, I'm going to click OK, and what's going to happen now is I'm going to get a bigger window also with the arguments. I can go and provide the arguments, but you see how smart Excel is, right? Once I pick the sum function, then it guesses that what I need to do over here is to add this number. So it already selected the range for me. Not only that, before I click OK, if I do accept this selection over here, I can see that the answer to this function will be the number 14, which is the addition of all these days. I'm going to do that. I'm going to click OK. And I do see that 14 is the answer to the addition of these numbers. Okay. So, but once again, my main point for from taking you over here is so you can go and see a list of all those functions available to you in Excel. Before I move on to the VLOOKUP, to the next objective, I want to also share with you this function that I find very useful. Okay, and more than being useful, I want to highlight again how Excel makes your calculations much easier. So let me give you the scenario over here. Let's say you're taking a loan for $50,000. Okay, that is the amount that you're going to take as a loan. Now you're going to pay back with a 4% interest rate. You can see the interest rate over here. Okay, of course that's a yearly rate. Okay, and you want to pay this amount back in 5 years. So because you're going to make monthly payments, 5 years means you are going to have to do 60 payments, right? So that's 5 times 12. Now, how do you do that calculation? I went, of course, I did a search on Google, and they told me, well, if you want to do a calculation on the, your payments on a monthly payment, this is the function you have to use. So you have to take the rate, you have to add it +1, elevate it to the n power, which represents over here the number of payments, and so on. So it's kind of like lengthy calculation. Can you do it manually? Yes, but why bother? If Excel give you this function over here, which is called the PMT. PMT stands for payments, okay? And now you know about the function. And once you start using the function, again, step number 1, use the equal sign. Number 2, type the function name. And what do I do next? Anybody saying open parentheses? Yes, you're right, if that's what you were thinking. So you gotta open the parentheses, and now you have to provide the argument for the function. Argument number 1, the function is asking you to provide the rate. So what is the rate? I put it right here on A2, so I just go there and click, and this is the rate. But I want to calculate monthly payments, okay? And this is a rate for the year, which means I have to divide it by 12, so I get the monthly interest rate, okay? What do I do next? Is everybody saying press a comma or use a comma? Yes, that's the answer. I use a comma to jump over to the next argument. So NPER is for the number of payments. So that's what the function wants you to provide now. So how many payments am I supposed to make? 60, right? I say 5 years, monthly payments. So I go over there where I have the 60, and then I click, okay? And I keep going on. So look at this. There are how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 arguments required by this function. So I'm going to use a comma again, and then go to the next argument. So now the function is asking for the principal, for the amount that I'm going to borrow. So that will be the 50,000 that I have on A1. And as I said before, there are some arguments that are optional. On this particular function, because it really serves different purposes, I'm not going to utilize the next two. I'm just going to close my parentheses over here, and I'm going to hit the enter key. And look at that, $920. That's what you have to pay on a monthly basis if you're going to borrow $50,000 from the bank, or maybe your 401k or your pension plan, if you're planning to do that. Just change the interest rate over here if you need to. So if you get a lower interest rate, let's say 3%, so you see how the calculation now updates and lowers to 898. So once again, this is the first objective, just me introducing the concept of a function. So let me go back here and check on my PowerPoint presentation. So I'm going to put a check mark on understanding the concept of a function on Excel. I hope you really get this. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to put a question over here. So let me just run a quick poll to see how you guys are doing so far. So I'm going to ask you two questions based on what I just told you. So let me put the poll up there on the screen, and everybody could just participate by giving me an answer. So questions are, do all functions in Excel require an argument? So that's a simple yes or no. So you can just get the mouse and tell me if you believe that all functions on Excel require an argument. You say yes. If you say, well, maybe some of them don't, then you say no. Okay. Question number two, can you create your own functions in Excel? I won't even make a comment on that. I will let you give me an answer. Can you create your own functions in Excel? Okay. And I don't mean to ask you if you know how to create your own functions in Excel. It's just if you have the ability to create your own functions. Okay. So let me see the answers. So in 2 seconds, the poll is closing. All right, and let me see what the answers are. So let me show the results with you. And do all functions on Excel require an argument? And most of you say no. Yeah, not all the not all the functions in Excel require an argument. Okay, if you say yes, you probably missed that explanation about the today and the now function. So those are two functions that don't require any arguments. Now, can you create your own functions in Excel? Wow. So the majority say yes, and yes, you can create your own functions in Excel. Am I going to show you how to do that today? No, but maybe in another class we'll have that. All right. So let me move on now and take you back to my PowerPoint presentation. So we cover objective number 1, but not the others. So we got to go now on learn how to enter and use the VLOOKUP function. Okay. And I will also show you the if and the account if. So let me take you back to Excel, and I'm going to take you now to the VLOOKUP. Okay. So V stands for vertical lookup. So what can the vertical lookup do for you? So let me first present the scenario over here, because I'm a big fan of the VLOOKUP, and I know that a lot of you may find this function to be very useful. So let me share what I have over here with you. So I was given this list of BSc IDs, names, and email addresses, okay? And don't worry about the names over here because they were totally scrambled. Okay, so the email addresses are not even right because they got different domains. I took the time to, scramble all the data. Even the BSc ID, I, moved those numbers around, and I even put 6 digits on it. Okay, but if you look at this data over here, it ranged from A2 all the way down to 45,000. So I got 45,000 entries over here. I got 45,000 BSc IDs, well, fake BSc IDs with names and email addresses. Now, this is something that you may find yourself doing all the time if you have to run queries on PeopleSoft, and you have to manipulate all this data. So, but what I've been asked to do over here is to find the name and the email address of these 5 different BSE IDs. Okay, it's only 5. So, well, you may be tempted to even thinking that you can, put these BSE IDs in order, and then you just go and look for them. And yes, you can do that. I mean, it's a manual process. Of course, you don't want to do that. Some of you may be familiar with the find command. So you can say, well, you can go to column A, and if you go to the home tab, which I'm doing right now, all the way right here on the right side, you have the find command. So I could click on find, right? And then say, okay, I'm going to find the first BSE ID 576619, right? So once I put it in, if I click find next, Excel will find it. So you see over here that it was found. So this guy happens to be, or this BSE ID is the BSE ID of Anthony Brown. Okay, so I can retrieve his name. I can retrieve his email address. So I could copy and paste and move that information over here. Okay, it's only 5. So yeah, you can go that way. But what if they ask you for 50 instead of 5, or even 100? So you don't want to repeat this process as many times. So that's when the V lookup, the vertical lookup, comes to your rescue. So let me first show you the syntax of the V lookup. If you're going to use the V lookup, so once you type in the function name, this is what the function is going to ask you. These are the different arguments on the function. So the first thing the function is going to ask you is the lookup value. What is the value that the function is going to find for you? Okay. In our case, the lookup value will be the BSC ID that you want the function to find. The second argument is the so-called table array. So you see right here, the table array. So the table array refers to the reference, the cell reference of the table where the function is going to find the BSC ID. Okay, so what is that cell reference? If you're thinking the entire table, yes, you're right. So you're gonna have to select from A2 all the way down to 45,000. That will be the second array. I'm sorry, the second argument. So what about the next one? The next one is called the column index. Okay, and you see a number 2 over here. Why a number 2? Because in our case, within this table, the BSC ID is column number 1. You agree to that? The name is column number 2, and the email address will be column number 3. So if I'm retrieving, if I want the function to retrieve the name of this BSC ID, then yes, I have to refer to number 2 because the name is on column number 2. So that's the reason for the column index number over here. Now, the last argument on this function, even though it's an optional argument, and how do you know that it's optional? Think about why do you know that this is optional? Are you saying because there are square brackets? If you're saying so, you're right. You see the square brackets around the range lookup, so that makes this argument optional. However, I'm going to make sure that I use it. Why? Because the options over here are for the function to find a number, a BSC ID that is close to this one, that is an approximate match to the one that the function is looking for. I don't want a BSC ID that is close to this one. I want an exact match. So that's why I'm going to use that function, that option over here with the argument. Okay, but let me show you how the function works. So I'm going to go again. I'm going to go to F2. I'm going to type equals, and then I'm going to start typing the function name. Okay, there are only 2 functions that begin with this letter, so the function is highlighted. I get the mouse, I double click, and now the function is up there. Okay, I have to tell the function the lookup value, the value that the function is going to look for. I already said is the BSC ID on cell E2. Perfect. What do I do next? Anybody saying press a comma? Yes. All right. So I'm going to type in the comma key, and now I got to provide the table array. So table array, selecting the table array is going to be a little bit tricky over here, right? Isn't it? Because I have to drag all the way down to 45,000, okay? But guess what? I'm just going to go from A2 to C20, and then I'm going to click right here on my formula, and I'm going to delete that number 20, and then I'm going to type 45000 for 45,000. Okay, so now I know that I'm taking all the cells within that table. What do I do next? Again, comma, and now they ask me for the column index number. So remember I said before, I'm retrieving the name of the employee now. So I start counting on this table, column number 1, number 2, number 3. Number 2 is for the name. So that is the number I'm going to use right there. Okay. Once I provide this argument, again, another comma. All right. And these are the optional arguments that I was referring to before. Okay. Do I want the function to find an approximate match? No, I want it to find the exact PSC ID, because otherwise it's going to bring me a different name, right? So I got to make sure that I select the exact match. How do I make my selection? I can do a double click, which I'm going to do now, and then the word false will go in there. I could have typed also the word false, but I'd rather, I love using my mouse, so that's how I do it. So I'm going to close my parentheses over here. I'm going to hit the enter key. And again, voila, Mr. Anthony Brown is here. I can see his name. And all I need to do now is what? As I did before, right? Drag down and copy. You saying yes? Yes. All right. So I'm going to do it. Although, got to be a little bit careful when you are using a range like this. Okay. And why do you have to be careful? Because you see, I got some errors over here. Okay. The function wasn't able to find the person with BSC ID 582843. Okay. That BSC ID just happened to be the first one on the list. So if I point to it right here, that's the first BSC ID on my list. So why didn't the function find it? I tell you why. Because when you copy a formula like this, all the cell references over here will be updated. Okay, so if you have something on a formula that says E2, once you copy it down, then on the next row it's going to read E3. If the range over here reads A2 C45,000, on the next one it's going to read A3 45,001. So it's always going to be updated by 1. Let me show you. So let me go over here to the cell that we have the error, and then you can see these numbers over here went up by 1, right? So now on this calculation, the function, if I just go there and press the F2, you notice that the function started looking for that particular BSC ID from row number 3. So it skipped number 2, okay? Now, how do you deal with this? Well, there are different ways to do it. My best approach is every time I have to deal with a big range. So there's a lot of cells that contain information that I know I'm going to be using. So what I do is, before I start working with the range, I do a selection, and I have to do that selection only one time. So I'm selecting the first row. I'm going to show you also a tip over here on how to bring my selection all the way down. Now, I'm holding the shift key down on my keyboard, and I'm going to press the down arrow key. But you notice that if I use it once, it only goes one row at a time. However, if I press the end, END key on my keyboard, once I press that key, once I tap on that key, Excel goes into something called the end mode. Okay, so you notice over here, I am on end mode. Once I am on that mode, if I use the down arrow key, then the Excel will move to the next, to the end of the range that contains data. So because there is a blank over here after William, then Excel will stop there. All right. So remember that you can select with the shift key, but once you go into end mode, then you're going to go all the way down until there is no more data. So that was an easier way to select all the table, right? But it gets even better, because now that I have my table selected, what I'm going to do is I'm going to name it. I'm going to give a name to this selection that I just made. What do I name it? You can name it anything you want. How do you name it though? Well, in order to name it, you have to go right here to this box we call the name box. Okay. So I'm going to go there and I'm going to click. All right. If you're looking at the name box right there, I'm going to put my radar so you can see what I'm at. And I'm going to click there and I'm going to give a name to this range. I'm going to call it, what should I call it? Names. Okay. Anything goes. Don't use spaces because Excel won't let you use space, like two words with space will not go, but names is good. So I gave the name, I hit the enter key, and from now on, every time that I use the word names on my calculations, then Excel knows that I'm referring to this cell. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to rewrite my formula. Okay, I'm going to go equals VLOOKUP. I'm going to double click on the formula. And then again, the look at value, you already know, is right here. Now we do a comma. But now for the table array, I don't have to make a selection, right? What do I use for the table array? Anybody saying the word names? If you are, you're right. I can type the word names. As I type it, you can see that it even shows up over here on the list. Okay, so I can do that trick that I like to do, the double click, and names goes there, and you see how the table is highlighted over here. So Excel knows about my table. What do I do next? Again, comma, and now the column index, because I'm still retrieving the name, I go with the number 2. I put another comma for my last selection over here, which is the exact match. Once again, you can type the word false, but why bother if you could double click and have it enter for you. Okay, so I'm going to close, hit the enter key, and I have again Anthony Brown. Now I could copy this and voila, everything works fine. Okay, however, I want to give you a chance over here if anybody on the audience is brave enough to volunteer. Okay, I can pass mouse and keyboard control to you, and if you're willing to do so, I will let you take control of my mouse. Let me see my participants over here. And let's see if I can get a volunteer to do the calculation on the next line over here. So Janelle, you can raise your hands.
Rafa, you have Genesee Rivera
All right,
is volunteering.
thank you so much, Maritas. Let me find her name over here.
Genese Rivera.
Say that again, G?
Genese, and the last name is Rivera.
I got Janice Rivera over here. I'm going to allow her to take control. And Janice, you are giving control now. See, oh, beautiful. You're controlling my computer. Go ahead, Janice. So step number 1. I'm sorry I cannot give you a voice control, okay? But just go to cell F3, beautiful. Okay, step number 1, the equal sign. So go on with the function name. Excellent. And look, she's doing the double clicking. Beautiful. So now the look at value. All right, so now we're looking for that particular BSCAD. Wonderful. So jump on to the next. And now you need the table array. Okay. Okay, so you are selecting the table, and that is also fine. Okay, you may have gone into the end. Okay, so I tell you what, Jenny, you got 2 options over here. If you go up again, okay, you could rewrite. You see where you have C17? Yeah, you can click there and backspace and remove the 17. You can just, yeah, and then type 45,000. Beautiful. You could do that. Use the comma. And now enter the column index number. Number 2, because you're looking for the name. Excellent. Okay, so go on. You want to find the exact. Beautiful. And you do, oh, wow, great. Close the parentheses. Hit the enter key. Oh, I'm so proud. How do you like that, Maritas? Janice, thank you so much.
Great, great.
Let's give it some clapping over here. Oh boy. All
Thank
right.
you.
Let's see. Anybody? Oh, we got Patel Payal. He wants to do another try. Yeah. Let me see if I can pass the control to Payal. Let me just find your name over here. And oh, this is fun, Maritas. This is really good. So Patel, Mr. Patel, I'm giving you control of my computer. Don't do anything, nothing on my computer. Just do the formula. All right, I'm going to challenge you, Patel. See if you can retrieve the email address rather than the name. So I want you to go to G2, okay, and give it a try to bring the email rather than the name. So go ahead. So it starts with the equal sign. That's very good. And now he's, oh, don't forget the name. You can backspace. Yep. You can backspace. Don't forget to enter the function name, Patel. Oh, you're going to have to type it in. I'm sorry. Yeah, you're going to have, oh, okay. Don't stop right there. Just backspace, backspace all the way until the equals. There you go. Okay. Yeah. Double click. Very clever. You were looking for the VLOOKUP down there, but no, you have to do a little bit of typing next time. Okay. Oh, you got two parentheses. So once you double click, Excel will put the parentheses for you. So just do one backspace. You don't have to do the extra one. Oh, I guess it might work with the double. Let's see. So the lookup is E2. All right. So use a comma to jump to the next argument. Okay. Yeah, no, let's stop right there, Patel. I want you to backspace, use the backspace key because you notice that you have two open parentheses, right? So backspace, one more. There you go. Excellent. So now you're gonna select E2, comma. All right. So you can either type in the name that I created before. What was that? Oh, you're gonna go with the cell reference. That's beautiful too. Yeah. So that will be A2 column, and the what's the ending? C45,000. No, don't worry about selecting Patel because that's gonna take you too long. So just backspace. Keep backspacing because you already had the A2. So keep going with the backspace, Patel. Yeah, backspace more. Keep going back. Keep going back. Keep going back. Backspace. Keep going back because you have already selected the VLOOKUP. So keep going back, Patel. Backspace. More backspace, and stop right there. Okay, don't forget the column. You put it before, you put it back again. And now you do C45,000. You're going to have to type it in. Beautiful. Okay. I think you're missing 10. So yeah, check there. Backspace and one more zero. Wonderful. Do another comma and then the column index. So now you're looking for the email address. Beautiful. Number 3. Okay, go ahead. Comma. And now you make the exact match. Double click. And now you can close. Let's give it another round of applause, Maritas.
Yay!
This is so wonderful, Patel. Thank you so much. So I'm gonna take control back. Okay, thank you for helping us out over here. And so I'm gonna keep moving now. All right. So you saw the VLOOKUP function. So let me introduce another function over here. So this will be the if function. All right. With the if function, okay. Let me first describe the scenario over here. So I have a list, okay, of times over here. So this may be a supervisor, right, who is checking on who is coming on time or not every day to work. Okay, so he have to supervise a bunch of people over here that report for work at 10 a.m. Okay, now they clock in and our timekeeping pass this information over to him. So he noticed that most of them come before 10. Okay, however, he noticed one person over here coming after 10 o'clock. All right, now he wants to have a list over here of who came on time and who came late. Okay, so he could manually go and type on time, and then late, and so on. Of course, he doesn't want to go that way because it will take too long. Okay, so what are the options over here? He has another time saving function called the if, and the if has so many uses. Okay, we just have the time to show you this use over here. So we're going to use the if function over here to determine if a person came before or at 10 a.m. Okay, so here is the syntax of the function, and this is how we're going to use it. Okay, now with the if function, as with any other function, right, you have to provide arguments. What is argument number one on the if function? So argument number one, the function is going to do a comparison. So you're going to tell the function, go and look at these numbers and compare them. So in other words, you can say, go and look at this time and check to see if this time is before the one on the left. Okay, so that will be the comparison. That's argument number one. After the function does that comparison, then the function is going to act on the result of the comparison. So if it happens that this time over here is less than 10, then the function will do something for you. What do you want the function to do for you? Well, you have to tell, and that is argument number two. So argument number two is value if true. In other words, do this if your comparison is true. Okay, and finally, argument number three will be, well, if the result of your comparison is not true, is false. If the guy didn't come here before 10, what do you want the function to do? Then in that case, in our case, we want the function to write the words late. Okay? Now, let's use the function over here. Let's go to cell C2, okay? And I'm going to start with the function name. So the function if, that's the function name. Once you see the function, you're going to double click. The function is going to open up the parentheses, okay? And now you have to provide the logical test, okay? The comparison. What is it that you want the function to compare? So you want the function to look at the value on B2. So I'm going to click on B2 and determine if this value is less than or equal to the value on A2, okay? And what do you want the function to do that comparison? Well, just to determine if the guy was on time or late. Okay. Now, as with any function, press a comma, and now you go into the first argument. So what happens if this is true? Well, if this is true, I want the function to type the words on time. Okay, because I want the function to give me a text result and not a calculation, I have to put that information on quotes. What if that? What if the comparison is false? Okay, well, in that case, I want the function to just put the word late. Okay, and then I close the parentheses, hit the enter key, and again, voila, you have it there. You do it once, all you need to do is just copy it down. Okay, and then on every calculation, the function is determining if the value on the right is less than the value on the left. Okay, if it is, it gets on time. If not, then the word late. Okay, so once again, another very useful function. Okay, I won't give you the chance to all practice over here because we're running out of time. So I will just conclude with the next function. Okay, the next function is the count if. So now that we were able to determine if the person was on time or late, I want to come here and use the count if function. Okay, so count if, it's also for counting, but now we're going to count with condition. Check out the count if function over here. Okay, count if, it asks me for a range. Okay, which cells do you want me to count on? So I'm going to say this, the cell from C2 to C20. However, the next argument over here establishes the criteria. So I'm saying I don't want you to count all of them. I just want you to count the ones that have the words on time. Okay, so range, I'm going to select it now, comma, criteria, once again, because I'm doing the count on the people who are on time, that's going to be my criteria. I'm going to type it there. I'm going to close my parentheses, hit the enter key, and I got 15. Okay, I'm going to give you the, I'm going to leave the next one as a homework to you. Okay, so I gave you the file. You're going to keep the file, and then you're going to do the calculation on the next one. All right, all it's going to change over here is just instead of on time, you are going to use the words late. Okay. Yeah, I trust you can do that. Okay. I just want to show you, remember I mentioned that there are some custom functions that you can create, okay? And remember I have this function that I call my name. What does the function does when I use the my name function that I created? It doesn't require any argument, so I just open and close the parentheses. When I hit the enter key, voila, it has my name, okay? Now, is that a useful function? You can say, well, is it really saving you time? Couldn't you just type your name instead of, creating a function for that purpose? Yes, so far, but guess what? I could go back and modify my function and then have the function return not only my name, but also my title, my phone number, my email address. So you get the idea. All right. So I'm going to get back to my PowerPoint presentation, make sure that I cover everything that I was to cover over here. Okay, and then I will now pass the microphone to Eval, so Eval can close our session for today. Go ahead, Eval. You are probably muted right now, Eval.
Hi, sorry. So something had me leaving the event. And honestly, I was taking notes and really excited about this whole interactive function. It's about time we got this good and, on the ball with getting our learners involved. So again, I'm Evel Stanford, and this is another day at Transit University for the MTA. It's a place to learn something to allow you to work smarter and easier. So I'm grateful to Rafa. Thanks, Rafa and Marites and my entire team, because the way that we work is you might see one person on the screen, but there's a team of people there to support them. And I'm really grateful for that. That's the way that, honestly, Transit University grows weekly. So you see that we have this interactive function, and we've done it before. And we hope to even have smaller classes that's coming up next, where you can use this interactive function more widely. So we'll be in our learning lab building courses. But in the meantime, you can reach out to us. You see, you can call us, or rather, email us at eConsult. You can also email me, but we're here to serve you. I also want to just thank our MTA IT partners, Isaac Tackey's team, Joe, Michael, Brian, and if there's anyone I'm forgetting, honestly, we are so grateful to be able to work alongside you to serve. And thanks again.
Goodbye.